my God, I fucking hate when you do that. I fucking hate when you do that. I fucking hate when you do that. I wanted to cover a little, ooh, it's kind of like a little, you know, like kind of a little, So, the SuperCrew Shawn update. I wanted to cover a little bit about paying it forward and being of service. With Shawn, everybody has ups and downs in life, and for like a while I had some rough patches. And like, especially when I met Shawn, I was functioning, but not really functioning in my life. And Shawn was there as like a big brother to me, and helped me out when I needed it. And, you know, kind of, it's not that it was like I owe you, man, but it's one of those things where like he's been rebuilding this truck for, you know, years, and it's been mostly him doing this thing, and like this final stretch of finish work, it's kind of like he cashed in his chips, and he's like, hey man, I need your help. And so this has been a thing for me of being of service with him, where it's not like we dropped it off and it was like well, just finish it like on the weekends if you can, and just with stuff, the work is rather extensive as far as it wasn't just a couple different things. So it was a pretty big list of stuff, and it wasn't one of those things where we could just work, like it was never going to get done if we just worked on it on a Saturday or a Saturday and a Sunday, and it needed some full-time attention. So this last couple weeks we've been just getting most of it done. There's like 2 more items that we need to finish up, but like all the big stuff is pretty much done. And I want to just walk you through what we have and where we're at, and then kind of talk about what's next. And then on the next kind of closure of the work update episode, we will have Shawn kind of come on, and then like we're going to follow this thing. So we'll follow it to paint, we'll follow it to upholstery, and then we'll also go out and test it. So it's a full spectrum thing. Shawn is one of my homies, so this thing will always be near me somewhere, or camping with us, or I'll be in it. So let's check it out. So, last time we covered the bumper and the valence that already got built. Colin has been taking most of this on in the front portion of the truck. The rear is what I've been addressing up until now. He's kind of back there working on it as we're talking about it. Building a valence, I always like to have the fasteners like minimal places where you can, if you get the tabs right, you can get in where they hold the shape, and you don't have to have like a ton of them. But with this, like we had this truck sat outside for like a week or 2 or whatever, and when Colin and I brought it in, it was gapped in areas. And so I think just with Shawn saying how his mirrors get deleted when he goes on trips via bushwhacking or whatever he's doing, just made sense to like just settle this a little tighter in the middle. So we just added from last time. This thing's cleaned up, but one of the big ticket items was to get the one-piece clip on a hinge system and its own frame, like a rigid frame. It had kind of a half-assed deal going on there that was just really rickety. I don't know the exact reasons why it needed to be rebuilt, but it definitely wasn't going to work. So Colin's been on this thing too, run through the mechanisms. Obviously, like there's some fender washers holding the tabs that go to the frame here. And then there's a secondary latch system with like a beauty plate or a landing plate here, instead of like that big rubber chingaderas that goes on there that always gets all flopped out when you tighten it down. This is already secondary, so it's not, the one piece clip is not relying on this, it's relying on the mini fender latches, but just so it's not doing all of that stuff. We have those guys on lanyards. Another thing too, like we've been trying to run, is just everything having a lanyard, meaning it's not just free moving, because just like any time you have clips like this, when you're in the heat of the moment or you have to take this off, more often than not, you leave them somewhere, they get lost, and then you're shit in the bed. So. Part of the challenges with building swinging forward one piece clip, when the bumper is really flush and almost in line with like the grill profile, is having it swing in a way where it doesn't collide. You can kind of see in here, there's a tubular structure that's functional. So it's a cool shape, but more or less it's for function. There we go. You get that? Okay. There we go. So, pretty simple frame. I mean, complicated but simple. You can see there's multiple radius rolls in here on the tubing. Same with the stops of the Heims. This whole structure acts as a stop as well. So it just flips forward and it gets to a point where it wants to stay there. And then it's just stopping on tube. Whoa, yikes. So you can see it's all, this whole thing is rolled to follow the profile of this clip. Shawn was actually the guy, so on these clips, this is a 97 to 03 SuperCrew or an F-150. Shawn's, like I mentioned in the previous episode, he's an OG with this stuff. And these type of trucks, and he got a group of guys together to put in on getting a one piece, like a proper one piece made that scoots the wheelbase forward and also gets you the right up travel and the track width. So Mark with McNeil put this thing together. There's like several guys that are running it. I think Proctor has one on his truck too. But that's what we built this thing to. Colin went above and beyond what I was even anticipating. I kind of gave him free roam on this thing. We just kind of plotted where we wanted it to land. But as far as all the rolling, like this thing's on multiple contour, you know, like compound rolls, which is awesome. It's just a really simple piece. It's rigid. You kind of always like give it a shake test just for wind. Like if these things are like huge air sails, you know, like or land sails, I guess, but when wind gets behind them, they're a big unit. So it's nice to make sure there's rigidity before sending it out. That kind of wraps up the clip here. The other big ticket item for the front was a removable windshield. I know with James's Frontier, there's been like a lot of people asking about the removable windshield. I've also done the Truggy windshield frame. So we didn't do like a Fab Diaries on that, but I am gonna give you guys like a run through on how we built this one and how it goes on and off and just the construction of it overall. And you should get a really good understanding of how we did it, because we really revised the design from James's to Shawn's. And what that enables us to do is not have to cut the glass. So it's just a factory piece of glass that goes on this thing. So then if you break it or it cracks, you don't have to have it cut, and also you never have to have it cut from the start. So it's just OEM, just replacement, just like a normal windshield would be if you had to, you know, take the glue off and put one on. So we'll cover that right now. All right, so a lot of these trucks, a lot of center mount trucks, not saying all, but a lot of them kind of have this situation. They have the motor super far back in the cab. This is a patent small block. We already talked about that a little bit. But bottom line is, it is back here. This is as forward as it can go with, you know, the bulkhead that it has on the chassis. So what this requires usually is to pull the windshield, pull this middle portion, which is not shown right now. Obviously there's another piece to the dash here that goes across here that kind of follows this profile, however that goes. I didn't build this thing, so I don't quite know. There's a removable cross tube with some sheet metal on it here that comes out, and then the engine comes out. So with Shawn, he's a DIY guy, and you know, he'll do the maintenance and stuff on this thing. And he just wanted to have a removable windshield, however that looks. The concern was making it sealed and still making it tight. When we did James's truck, we had like a tab, like a corner tab, and then we had a nutsert, like a 3/8 nutsert on each corner. So Mike trimmed the factory Nissan glass, and he like cut the corners, just clipped the corners, literally cut the corners. And we had the nutserts there. So there's still means for like sealing it, but it's only 4 pickup points. With James's, we'll put like a weather strip, like a nice, you know, thick weather strip on the backside that's adhesive backed, and then just press the thing down and get what we get. Shawn wanted to try to get a couple more pickup points, so on his we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to really clamp the frame on there. And I just want to kind of show you what we're working with here. I can open this up and show you the tabs and the nutsert area, and then the ones up here are like a pressure, like a bolt tension that just kind of sandwiches this thing down. That was a Colin idea. I wasn't even here, and he like called me and FaceTimed me and showed me, he's like, is this gonna work? And I was like, yeah, that's amazing. And it just is, we started to think, oh, well, maybe we have to notch part of the roof to have like a tab come out from the frame, or like have it slide in somewhere, and just a lot of weird options, whereas like, it was almost like just build the bottom and we'll figure that out. And that was the solution, and it turned out to be an awesome one. Don't worry about me, I got it figured out okay. Yeah, that was pretty fast. I think you could put a gas shock in here just to kind of buffer that thing. I don't know where, just because things are so tight. Like that frame is literally tailored to what he has up here. So I don't know packaging wise if that works, but you can kind of see. So on this piece, there's just a trick tab here with a big nutsert. Same on the corners, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we'll go check out the windshield. All right, so this is the removable windshield. Obviously it's you know, the outside is facing down. The glass is just factory F-150 glass glued to this frame. This is 1/8 inch aluminum, just kind of a perimeter frame. And then obviously we laid out areas where the tabs are gonna be on the lower portion, like where it goes down to the wiper cowl area. And then what we came up with on this area, which we'll show you when we install this thing right now, is these bolts just have a nut plate back here, and they just tighten right into like the seam, like where the weather strip, or the, you know, where the windshield would, like the shelf where it would get glued, it creates tension there, and it just pulls the whole frame in. It's just a fantastic idea. It's almost like a trick tab style. It's just 2 brakes welded on, and then that frame just slides in right there and just tighten that thing down. Getting the perimeters, like how do you figure out this kind of stuff, as far as how wide you go, or how far down the top part goes, or where you can get a scowl in like this. That's kind of something I sat in the driver's seat and like marked, sat up pretty high. Shawn's taller than me, sat up and just kind of got all angles of like on the pillar area. When we had the aluminum sheet sitting in the truck where it was just full, it wasn't cut out in the middle yet, and just did a really rough line. Same, you know, if you're looking at it from there, driver side, passenger side, and this is the middle, and Shawn's got like a big electronics console with a screen here that goes back towards the back seats. So I banked on that because that's already taking more visibility than this, and this is a really nice opportunity to just get some style points in here. And add like a nice design feature, and that's what this is. I mean, you could say it blocks some of the sun glare if you really wanted to play your cards, but all together, like with Shawn, and you know, he calls this thing Black Ops, and you know, the whole inside feels super like military aircraft like. It's very just controls everywhere, and you know, he'll have like red lighting, and when we cover it, when all the interior is done, it's gonna have that vibe. So I just naturally, something with the styling, it just felt like this should be here. And it's going to be a great like cue from outside the car too. It's got almost like a spaceship vibe or like a stealth bomber kind of thing. We'll see if you guys can tell or feel that. But anyways, this is kind of where we're at here. I think we will do a how-to on this just because it's such a, there's a lot of feedback on this thing, and there's, you know, it's a super useful thing to have for a lot of off-road vehicles, and it's not a terribly hard thing to build. You just have to think about it. So the fact now, like the one variable that was tricky is that I'd have to have Mike, the glass guy, cut the corners, and that's like a pain in the ass. You know, nobody wants to do that. Like you can easily have a glass person come out and give you a windshield or install something, but to have to find someone that can cut the corners and not damage the windshield and just build it to that, it makes it more difficult. So this is like the streamlined way, and I don't think we're going to turn back from here on out with building them like this. So you guys can see there's just like a reveal of that 1/8 inch aluminum frame here. It's glued, this thing's just glued on. So all you're doing is you're building to that return, that shelf where your window would normally sit, except you're building a frame that goes in there, and then you're just gluing the window the same exact way that it would be glued. So that's what Mike came and did. He just came and set this window right on the frame, just like it was setting in the car, in the chassis like it is. You can see the mounting locations on the lower portion, so 3/8 bolts into nutserts, and then we'll go on the inside. I'm just going to kind of close this to get the vibe right. So just again, like that detail, when you look at it from the front especially, it really kind of has a prominent feature. Leaving that thing raw, that was kind of my call. I didn't think we needed to paint it or powder coat it. I think that like even when the sun hits it, it'll be cool because you'll see that like frame, and you'll almost see that center point, and it really brings the symmetry into the truck. There's a lot of tube work. You can see there's a lot of diagonals, you know, on the A pillar area, B pillar, and C pillar. And then the mirror, you can see how centered that thing is because that pickup for the rear view mirror is dead center with that thing. So it's a nice clean operation. I mean, it's solid, it's streamlined. It's great. It's my favorite thing on this thing right now. It just killed it. And that design, like the pinch bolt, we'll go check out the pinch bolt area in there, but that solution I would not have thought of. And it really made it, because then it really adds to the seal. Once we put like a aggressive weather strip in here, it'll be completely sealed, no problem. And you know, he's going to have, like we mentioned before, there's 2 air conditioners. I also said that there was an air conditioner in the front. There's not. There's an air conditioner in the center console, and then there's an air conditioner in the rear in its own little cubby. So correction from last update. Let's check out the inside. All right. PCI. Tried and tested. All right, check this bad boy out. So you can see it's like, things are pretty high in here. Field of vision, like this does not go past the front one-piece clip. So even though it seems high, you're still not, you know, this is not blocking anything that one-piece clip is already blocking. The same with the frame, everything, like the upper portion with the constraints kind of for how far we went down, just based on like where that tint strip is or whatever you call that from factory. It's a pretty good reference point. Same with this, you know, none of this is intersected. And then what you do see here is the tab mechanism. So I don't know how easy it is to see that or get there, but there's just like an aircraft nut plate, which we started to use. We're kind of stray on that subject. We're straying away from using like normal shouldered nutserts, and we're just going to use nut plates, just aircraft nut plates for everything. it seems like the optimal thing to do for any kind of sheet metal stuff that usually would be using nutsert for. So that's what we have in here, and it's just a tab, and it's a pressure seal. So you just crank that bolt down, and that thing just grabs and it just creates tension. It's a perfect application. So that's our removable windshield. Let's go over some stuff in the rear, and we'll close this thing up. So what I'm doing, I have the truck lifted up so we can kind of showcase the panels under here. I was gonna just show you under the fender, but it's better to just take the fender off. This stuff comes off easy. Part of this thing with Shawn, it's like, you know, even doing him solids and like paying it forward with him for just helping me out in my life in previous times. It's still like, I caught myself in areas where I'm like, I can't skimp on like the quality and skimp on, you know, how we do things normally. So everything is still, it's just been like taking time because we're building it the same as we would anybody else's car, and it's no different. I'll leave that guy half cocked. So one of the things too was get the fender centered. I think when I don't know what changed, but the fender was not centered with the truck at ride height. You kind of want to do that. Sometimes you'll shoot yourself in the foot because the way a forward link works, it usually swings in an arch. So when you're bumped and you're at full compression, the wheel's going to go in towards the cab, and then like ride height, it'll start to swing out and go out further, and then droop again. It's going to go in towards the cab. So like, I've done it before. The reason I know some of these is, well, most of this stuff is because I usually fuck it up first. So just setting this thing at ride height and then centering the bedside needed to happen. I still used his mounts, which we'll get into later, because the bedside is definitely kicked out more on the driver's side than it is on the passenger side. It's already a fabricated item on this thing, and it's not in here for me to completely rebuild. So just making do and making the best of what I can. You are up in my bubble, boy. All right. Don't worry about that. I didn't trip or anything. It's all good. I'm gonna move these just so we don't take away from the sides. All right, so like we talked about before, part of Shawn's rebuild was he added a bigger shock package and then like reconfigured some of the options before. Obviously this was like a running, driving truck for years, but there was like miscellaneous packaging items that like had holes and just kind of weird stuff throughout the side enclosure panels or chassis enclosure panels. So I just used those as a template and then kind of built a better version that's a little tighter and more reformed than what was there, and then also added a step roll. Before they were just a blank, and we just did things how we do here. So obviously like a nice deep step, part of that. I prefer, and obviously these aren't like a full finish two-tone situation here. They're kind of just brushed on the edges. I like using a deeper step roll because it shows depth in the panel. It shows dimension. It's not just like a tiny little guy, and you know, that's still serving the right purpose of like adding rigidity to a panel, but you can really get design out of a panel, like just a simple flat panel, by adding depth and dimension in it with like a deeper step. So just different ways to do things. The other panel we added was this cleanup panel here. There's just like chassis stuff back here. The sheet metal for the back wall was done from the inside of the cab. So you still see like exposed tubes. This will kick up mud and shit, and well, not poop, but you know what I'm saying. and it's just, if you don't have like the sheet metal where it's done from this side, like the actual cabin sheet metal, you just have a lot of voids of like cleanup and excess debris that can get caught in there. So this is just like a really nice cleanup panel that encloses everything, makes servicing easy, and it just cleans everything up in general. So all this stuff is modular. It comes off in order of necessity. So this is where we're going to leave off for this update. Next update, we will cover rear bumper, fiberglass, like fender to chassis enclosure panels, all like the top, all the enclosure, you know, if you looked at the truck with the bedsides on, just covering the whole thing in full enclosures. Provisions, he wants to run outdoor speakers, so we'll have like mesh cutouts where those can be hiding behind. Trans cooler needs ventilation, mesh cutout, some shock venting. I think we're gonna play with the profile here and adjust the profile like of the sheet metal just to kind of add some tension and just like more dynamic shake back here instead of just your typical like flat stuff. So that's one thing. Rear bumper, build a new rear bumper. And then we have a portion of the instrument panel that needs to be rebuilt, which is like the driver GPS. So there's a passenger GPS and there's also a driver GPS, and that whole thing needs to just be reworked and adjusted. And then also some trim panels for the door panels that are in here. So for the new part of the chassis that's down here, all the lacing, the factory door panel doesn't work at all, like in the lower portion of it. So he just cut it and we're just putting a little trim piece in there. So there's things to look forward to. We'll get this thing outside in the light next time. And I'm looking to have Shawn here too, just so I want to like have him tell some of his story. Just love like the truck and when he got it and just the passion. I mean, you have to respect, the thing with like fabrication and building these things is, even if like the quality or the craftsmanship is not 10 out of 10 and fully proper and legit, like there's a huge level of appreciation for guys that like can take a truck and build stuff, or build the thing all the way to running and wire and plumb it and make the air conditioner work, and like just there's so much to this to appreciate. And I just want you guys to kind of hear Shawn's story and his passion, about building this thing in his garage. So anyways, I hope you're enjoying the updates. We appreciate the support. Thank you. Like, subscribe, comment.